So welcome and thank you for making time out of your busy day to join us. I'm glad you're here for the expert education presentation from the Sashbear Foundation. I'm Carol Moffat, and I have the privilege of being a volunteer and a family member who has benefited by the programs that are offered by Sashbear. We love all things Sashbear in our family and excited to be here to learn more. The learning never stops. And with all that learning, we just get better at managing these emotions that can sometimes get away from us. The Sashbear Foundation is a Canadian charity recognized nationally and internationally as a leading voice for families impacted by emotion dysregulation, suicidality, and related mental health challenges. We are joined this evening by Lynn Curry, the co-founder of the Sashbear Foundation, and it's always great when we get to spend time with Lynn. We are all emotional beings, and yes, sometimes they can get the better of us. With the start of a new school year upon us, some of us might be anxious going to a new school, excited to start a college adventure, sad at the thought of their little one starting kindergarten, or unsettled realizing they're going to be an empty nester. There's a lot of emotions going on at this time of year, and that's just for one single event. And we know nobody has just one event going on in their lives. With all that said, once again, thank you for joining us tonight, and I'd like to introduce our expert speaker, Dr. Christine Dunkley. Now, Christine is in the UK, so we are so grateful for her to be with us, especially given the time zone difference. Thank you, Christine. Christine Dunkley has been with the British Isles DBT Training team since 2006 and is now a consultant trainer and director of applied research and training. She started her social work degree in 1978 and worked in the national health system as a medical social worker and psychological therapist for 30 years until she retired in 2012. During her career, she undertook training in counselling and DBT and did a doctorate in clinical practice at the University of Southampton School of Health Sciences, studying emotional pain communication with suicidal patients. Christine was the first chair of the Society for DBT of the UK and Ireland in 2012. She received a fellowship of the Society in 2016 and is a vice president. Christine has taught, okay, this one really gets me, over 50 DBT intensive trainings and hundreds of workshops, making her one of the most prolific DBT trainers internationally. And she's here with us tonight. Isn't that cool, you guys? Mm-hmm. She has taught to audiences across the world and at home, and wrote the component of the NHS training for mental health well-being practitioners. She is well known for her top tips and has 19,000 followers on LinkedIn, making her a popular podcast guest. She has a number of publications, and most notably is her book, Regulating Emotion the DBT Way. Christine is going to share with us the dialectics of emotional regulation. So excited to have you, and welcome, Christine. Over to you.
Thank you. Thank you so much for that lovely introduction, and no pressure then, guys, to live up to that. Especially at bedtime as it is over here in the UK. So I'll see what I can do. Hope I keep awake for you guys. I am here really because I met Lynn Curry. We were both presenting at a conference in Versailles earlier this year, and we were presenting to the French speakers in the DBT world, but I don't speak any French. The only French that I speak is somebody taught me how to say "Merci pour l'invitation," which I said, and then that was it. I have nothing else. So after my talk, I was waiting to go, but out of politeness, I stayed for Lynn's talk, even though it was in a language I didn't speak. But despite it being in a language I did not speak, my heart understood every word. I don't think I've ever been so moved by a presentation. There were no words. needed in the communication that was made then. And I was riveted to the entire presentation, not understanding a word of the language. And when Lynn asked me, would I come and present to this group, I could never have said no, because a piece of my heart went out to you all that day. And I cannot tell you how moved I am by what you are all doing, and anything that I could do to help you. It's such a tiny thing, because what you're doing is immense. So I hope that I can add something that is of value to you for coming to this talk today. Emotion regulation, my favourite subject in the entire world, having taught this to many patients over decades in the NHS, and patients who are at risk of suicide and in a lot of emotional pain. So what is emotion regulation? I think we need to start there, because a lot of people, when they hear the term emotion regulation, think that what we mean is getting an emotion down. They hear emotion regulation and they either think it means emotion reduction, or that it means emotion elimination, and it doesn't mean either of those things. Regulation is a different thing altogether. So let's have a look at what that is. I'll change this. There we go. So what is emotion regulation? It's the ability to increase or decrease the intensity of an emotion under your conscious control. Under your conscious control, which means not just having an emotion and then thinking, oh no, I'm just stuck with this until it goes away on its own. It's the ability to sometimes get more of an emotion because you want more of it, or get less of an emotion because you don't want as much of it, in order to be effective. So this is the DBT principle of everything is about effectiveness. What's the most effective thing for me? How much anger is too much? How much anger is not enough in this situation? So this is where we have to always contextualize when an emotion happens, because without that, you cannot know. You seriously cannot know if this emotion is regulated or not. Let me give you an example. Near to where I live, there's the University of Southampton, and it has a halls of residence where the students live, a massive tower block. And one evening, there was a fire in the tower block at about 11 o'clock at night. Now, the students at 11 o'clock at night are all coming back from parties and, you know, the pub or wherever they've been, and hijinks, you know, often they've been drinking, use the kitchens, make themselves toast or heat up yesterday's curry, you know. Somebody had set fire to a toaster, and this fire took hold. Now, some students were up and about and could see that there was a fire. Other students had gone to bed and gone to sleep. Now, they're used to a lot of noise at 11 o'clock at night. They tune it out because they're just thinking, oh, that's everybody coming back from all their parties. And so the students who realized there was a fire ran down the corridors, shouting at the top of their voices and banging on the doors really loudly. That emotion entirely regulated. That was a completely regulated emotion because it matched the facts. It was the amount of emotion that was needed in that situation to be effective and wake the sleeping students. So even if an emotion is huge, it doesn't mean it's not regulated. Now, similarly, we can have a situation where you just don't have enough emotion. I was working with someone, and she was a client of mine, and she, to cut a long story short, she found out that one of her friends had been stealing from her. She'd gone out with this friend, and she'd mislaid her jacket, and it was a really distinctive jacket. And she said to her friend, you know, did you see that jacket? What did I leave it somewhere? And her friend said, oh, I don't know if you were even wearing it when we went out last. I don't remember. Anyway, a couple of weeks after this, she goes round to her friend's place. She goes to the bathroom and passes her friend's bedroom door, which is ajar. On her bed, her friend's bed, her jacket. She tells me about this, and I say, oh, were you angry? And she says, no, not really. No, these things happen. Now, there's a good reason for that, a really good reason for that. And the reason is that in my client's birth family, her father was so violent that if he got angry, he would beat them all. And so everyone in that family crept around, making sure that no anger ever entered those walls. And when my client said, I don't do anger, she was telling the truth. She really didn't. She didn't even feel angry. It's not that she felt it and suppressed it. She never felt it. By the time she got to me, she never felt it. But what happens if you can't even show the slightest crossness on your face or in your voice if someone is taking your stuff? That emotion was under-regulated. That she needed to up-regulate her anger. She doesn't need to be furious, but she does need to be able to police her boundaries and say, this isn't on. Can't just take my stuff. So an emotion has to be regulated by matching the facts. Now, if you know DBT, we call it, does the emotion fit the facts? But I don't like that word, fit the facts, because many people who've been through therapies are used to, like cognitive therapy for anxiety and things, and they're used to it being a rhetorical question like, does the emotion match the facts? And they kind of think that they're meant to go, oh, no, it doesn't. No, you're right. It doesn't match the facts. But that's not where I'm coming from at all. What we really need to be saying is, how much emotion do we need here to match the facts? How much do we need to match the facts? Now, because it requires flexible responding, so sometimes we need more and sometimes we need less. This is a dialectical skill. We call this a dialectical skill. Now, I think that most of you are familiar with dialectics, but in case you're not, I'm just going to tell you a little bit about what dialectics is. I think it's on the next slide. It's not. No, it's not. I've taken that slide out. But anyway, dialectics really is a process of it depends. It's no one size fits all. We're all different. We're all unique. And therefore, we need to work out in any given situation. That's why it's a mindfulness-based therapy. In any situation, how much do we need? And what would be right for me wouldn't be right for Lynn, wouldn't be right for Carol. You know, it's unique to the person and the situation. How much emotion do we need to be effective? And all emotions are trying to help you. Every emotion you have, disgust, shame, every emotion is trying to help you. This is the biggest message. So if you have a loved one and they're over emotional, if it's you yourself, when an emotion comes in, we want to open the door and go, how are you trying to help me here? Because I know you are. And Marsha Linehan says, look for the nugget of gold in the pan of sand. There's a nugget of gold in every emotion. It's there to help you. It's trying to help you. And first, we want to go there. Now, a top tip from me, people who don't make improvements in DBT, or people who don't make improvements with their emotion regulation, are often over relying on distress tolerance skills. They're over relying on distraction, ice diving, self-soothing, acceptance, which isn't emotion regulation. What that does for us is it cuts off the emotion. So if you've got an emotion and you plunge your face in cold water, it's going to go. Or if you distract yourself, the emotion will go. If you just soothe your body, the emotion will go. If you just accept the situation, the emotion will go. But it doesn't really give you the relationship with emotions that give you that sense of mastery, that sense that any emotion you can say, come on, I got this, that I speak emotion, I know how to get it up, I know how to get it down. And therefore, we don't have to be afraid of emotion. And once we're not afraid of emotion, we don't have to do all the things that people do to get rid of them, like drink, harm themselves, think about killing their body, because that's where the emotion sits in their body and they just want to get rid of it. So once we can master our emotions, we can understand what they're trying to tell us and use them appropriately, all that fear goes away. Is anyone interested in that? Are we interested? Yes? Good. Give me a thumbs up. We're interested. Okay. Right. So now I just want to say, oh, turn this. Can we I'm just going to stop sharing this for a moment. I wanted to say that all of us have this skill of emotion regulation, but we're not really told that it is a skill. We don't get told that this is a skill that we've got, but we have it and we utilize it. So I'm just going to give you an example here. Let's say that I grow prize roses in my garden. So I'm always out in the garden and I'm always tending my flowers and I love them, and I show them in the local horticultural show. Come home from work one day, head into my garden, show's coming up, my blooms are looking good, head into my garden, someone has pulled the heads off my prize blooms. Not even cut them like you would give a bunch of flowers to someone. Pulled the heads off, and I am livid. And I go into my house. I'm furious. I think I know who it is, the person who's competing with me at the show. Stomping around in my kitchen like you do. Knock on the door. I open the door. It's the little girl from next door. She's only 5. Her garden borders on my garden. In her arms, what do you think? My prize blooms, right? She looks at me and she goes, Christine, I brought you some flowers because I know you love your flowers and I love you. Damn it. Who here is going to down-regulate your anger? Raise your hand if you're going to down-regulate your anger. You are, aren't you? She's only 5. She thought she was going to do a nice thing, right? She didn't mean to destroy my flowers. Now, here's the thing. It's not as if I see her little face and I hear the words and my anger just goes poof, and I'm not angry anymore. Oh, lovely. Oh, good. I'm still angry. I am still angry, guys. But she's only 5 and she didn't mean it. So I have to work at it. I have to work at it right. There's no, but I can't, it just does not go. I have to work at it. So does anybody know how would I work at it? How would I work at it? Anybody? get upset with the parent. Yeah, well, I want to keep my neighbours, unfortunately, so I can't get too upset, right? So deep breath. Yeah, I would take a deep breath. So immediately I'm going to start working on the physiology. I'm going to start there. I would immediately take a deep breath. You'd see me, right? And you'd see my shoulders go down. Now, you would see my facial expression change from this to this. You'd see my eyebrows go up. You would see my facial, you would see my my mouth change slightly. The muscle tone would be looser. Now, this is important because my facial expression, my muscles, my breathing, all of these things are sending a signal back to my brain. My brain is reading all these signals in order to understand how much of the hormonal tap needs to be open or closed. The hormones are what work the emotion. And the hormones are being read, the facial expression, it's part of the tap, more or less. So while I'm like this, my brain is going, more, open the tap, open the tap. And while I go like this, my brain is going, oh, okay, it's not that bad, it's not that bad. And it closes off the tap. It's an actual physiological tap, guys. And it's worked by the body. It's the bidirectional feedback. If you've seen the diagram, the very complicated diagram in the DBT manual about all the different parts of emotion, the most important bit are the two arrows that say it's bidirectional. So you feel angry and you do all of this, you stop doing all of this, and the anger responds accordingly. It's like horse and rider. They go together. And so this goes down. Now, here's another important point, though. I do not want to go all the way to zero. I do not want to go all the way to zero. I don't want to be going, oh, you are so gorgeous. Come here, let me give you a big hug. Mwah. I love you so much. I don't want to do that. Why do I not do this? Why do I not want to do this? Get my glasses on. What's it say in the chat here? What does it say? Why do not? She needs to know. Yes, I don't want her to do it again. Absolutely, you got it. So I have to downregulate, 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 downregulate. But I have to keep just enough of the emotion to be effective. To be effective. Now, she's only 5. And she meant well. So I can't be like, whoa, what were you doing? Because then she would start crying. She would not understand why I'd be mean to her. Her mother would march around and say, why have you upset my daughter? So, so I had to go down and down until I get to this point where I'm saying, okay, honey, now listen, sweetie. Don't go in the garden by yourself, will you, honey? Don't go in by yourself. If you want to pick some flowers, sweetie, you come to me and I'll pick the flowers with you and I'll show you the ones to pick, okay? Don't go in by yourself, will you, honey? Now, she knows she normally gets me going, come here. But on this occasion, she's got something different and it's just enough for her to know. So when we're down regulating an emotion, we need to know where to stop. We can't down regulate all the way to 0. And it's the down regulating emotion to 0 whenever your loved one, whenever a client of mine says, oh no, I don't want to be angry at all. I have to block that. I have to say, no, we've got to keep some because it's helping us. It's helping me to not have my flowers picked, every time my back is turned. We have to go down just to the point where it's effective. And we have to keep that emotion. Now, it's the down regulating to 0, which is the invalidation. That would be emotion invalidation. Now, it's hard for us. It's hard for you if it's your loved one. It's hard for me if it's my loved one. And for example, they're sad. Because even when I'm saying to them, It's okay to be sad. Every muscle in my face is going, no, no, make it stop, because you feel their pain, right? So we have to work at it. We have to work at all of this. We want to give the message when there's emotion. We want to honor the bit of the emotion that matches the facts. And if there's too much, we just downregulate the excess part of the emotion. Now, I think there was a question in the chat here. What if the child says they don't care? Then I might have to up my emotion a little bit. But I would more have to go with the rationale behind it. Now, sometimes Marsha has said when clients say, I don't care, she has this question, is it that you don't care, or is it that you don't allow yourself to care? And we have to say that with a sympathetic voice, because most people do care about things, but for some reason, maybe their experiences or whatever, they have kind of hardened up to some things, like a self-protection. And we just want to show that we understand that sometimes it's that they haven't allowed themselves to care because it's a protection against rejection or other people and their responses. That's a good thing to try anyway. It can't always, it doesn't always win. I don't, government health warning here. Everything that I suggest here can at times just completely backfire or just not work. They say, I don't care because I'm hurting too much and I don't care how you feel. That makes complete sense. That's the key phrase. Then I would say that makes complete sense. Why would you not, why would you care when your pain is so intense that you're trying to just find a way out of it? And who wouldn't want to take that way? Who wouldn't want to take that way? Of course, that makes complete sense. I can tell you now, my top tip and the toppest of my top tips is the more you say that makes complete sense, the more your loved ones or your clients, if you're working with clients, the more their fight goes down. Because you're not giving them anything to fight. You're just validating. And validation is the oil in the wheels of change. It's the oil in the wheels of change. Okay. Right. So let's move on. Keep an eye on the time. In fact, I have no idea what time it is and how long I've got, but I'm just going to keep going till someone tells me to stop. Okay. So let me go to this diagram here. Now, this looks like a complicated diagram, doesn't it? In fact, do I have a whiteboard on here or not? Do we have a whiteboard here? Share screen. No, I don't think I do. No, never mind. I'll just put that diagram back up. Sorry about that. Let's go again. Share. Here we go. Okay. So here is a diagram about that. You can explain it to people. I've just explained it to people this way, right? Get a piece of paper, draw a column on it. At the top of the column up here is 100% of the emotion. If I was angry, I couldn't be more angry. At the bottom here is 0 emotion. So emotion regulation is the ability to increase or decrease at will according to that. Now, our problem is this. When you push an emotion away, it comes back stronger next time. We know this. We know this from research. We know this from fMRI scanning. We know this from EEG scanning. If you distract from an emotional cue, immediately within 3 seconds, your emotion will start to drop. But when you encounter the same cue, even 30 minutes later, the emotion will come back with increased intensity. So because our clients, our loved ones, are, the problem is that often they have pushed their emotion away because their emotion has been terrifying at times and painful. Marsha says, like a layer of emotional skin is missing. How painful must that be? Because they've pushed it away, when it comes back painfully strong. So when people say, I only either feel 100% of emotion or 0% of emotion, they're telling the truth. They're telling the truth. So I would run a group, right? For those of you running groups, I know some of you here would run a group, and I would say it to my clients, I would say, imagine it's my birthday and you forgot to acknowledge it. You didn't acknowledge it at all. You didn't send me a card. You didn't say happy birthday. You didn't phone me. You didn't give me anything. You just let my birthday go by. How much guilt on a scale of 0 would be no guilt at all, and 100 would be the most guilt you could possibly feel for anything? How much guilt would roughly match the facts? I mean, it's not an exact science, but roughly match the facts. What do you think, guys? Chat me a number. Chat me a number. Put me a number in the chat. From 0 to 100. 35, 75. Wow, Tachana. 90, Gatika. Oh my goodness, 90 degrees. 30, 60, some of you. Okay. 90, Linda. Oh my goodness, see me, Linda. You're over guilting here, Linda. I can tell you, it depends if it's a big birthday. Yeah, okay. Right, depends on who. You're right. It depends is a big dialectical thing, isn't it? It depends. Now, here's the thing. For many of my clients, they would just say 100%. If I didn't send you anything, if I felt guilt, I only feel it as 100%, and they're telling the truth. So what I say is this, and I'm going to say it to you, Linda and Geetika. So you are so horrified at having forgotten my birthday that you drive round to my house to give me a card and some chocolates, drive onto my drive, run over my dog and kill it. How much guilt now? Linda, how much guilt? That's awful. Yes, Gitika, do you want to downregulate your emotion, Gitika? Do you want to downregulate? Because you can't really go 90% for the card and only 100% for the dog, can you? You can't really like, oh my God, I'm absolutely desperate that I forgot your birthday. And also I rang over your dog. I feel a bit worse about that, only a little though. Yeah, you can't, can you? You need to get that original emotion down. And I think most people have understood. Gitika, you want to get it down now, do you? You do. Your original card emotion has to come down. Has everybody felt that? So that's what we want to do. We want to get it down. And for some people, this is absolutely revelatory. You know, they had no idea that you could even work it out. They just thought, if I have an emotion, I'm stuck with it. But actually, we can change our emotional experience. Now, here's the other thing, and I'm going to go back to my diagram now because I want you to understand this diagram. It's important. So we know that we don't have to feel 100% emotion for everything. But people have already put in the chat, it depends. And that is a dialectical phrase. It depends is a dialectical phrase. So here's the thing. If you have a different situation, you have a different level of emotion. So let's say it was my birthday and you didn't acknowledge it. Just the same thing. It was my birthday, you didn't acknowledge it. But recently, I had been really helpful to you. And you'd said, I know it's your birthday coming up, so don't even do anything about your birthday. I just want you to forget your birthday because I am going to throw you a party. But you forgot. You forgot to throw the party. More guilt or less guilt than just when it was an ordinary birthday and you just forgot it. If you forgot to throw the party, more guilt or less guilt? More. I think people are giving me the more sign, yes. Now, here is the reason. Because if we have one situation, which is it was my birthday, an ordinary birthday, it wasn't a special birthday, I wasn't, it wasn't a particularly indebted birthday, and you forgot it, it would be down here. The emotion would be down here, right? And that would be problem one. If it was you forgot the party, the emotion would be higher, because you need more emotion to solve that problem. Because the top reason to have emotion, the top emotion regulation strategy is, drum roll, problem solving. That's why you have emotion. You have emotion to help you solve your problems. So what is the solution for just forgetting the card? You didn't have to do a party. What's the solution for that? You just forgot to acknowledge my birthday. What's the solution for that? How are you going to solve that? Lost my chat here. Oops. Apologize, yes. Verbal happy birthday, yes. Here's a card, here's a box of chocolates. Great. That's exactly what we would do. Here we are. Send a belated card. Yeah. And then the guilt will go. It will go. If you have an emotion and you solve the problem, the emotion will go. And this is true emotion regulation. It's not distracting yourself. It's proper emotion regulation. Now, if you hadn't organized the party, can you say, here's a box of chocolates, sorry, I forgot to organize your party? Can you do that? No, you need to do more. And that's why the emotion is higher. So remember that it's the most important point. If you have an emotion, it's trying to tell you something. Find out what it's trying to help you with and solve the problem. Now, there's a reason that people don't solve the problem, because they get distracted onto the unpleasantness of the emotion, and then they try to solve the problem of the emotion rather than the problem of what set off the emotion. Does that make sense? I'm now no longer looking at, I need to sort a party out, or I need to, do an afternoon tea or something like that. I'm now thinking, how do I get rid of this feeling in my body? And that's the problem. So I have a story that I tell. Now, I am 64 years old. And so I'm going back to something that happened in my 20s when I was 20. So a long time ago. And I used to meet my mates on a Saturday night up the pub, because we didn't have wall-to-wall entertainment in those days. So, I would go up to the pub and meet my mates on a Saturday. And I was there one Saturday night when one of my mates bought a car over the bar in a pub for cash. Somebody was there going, oh, my car's an old wreck, it won't even start, I'll have to walk home, anybody want it? Yeah, I've got 20 quid, and bought it. A complete old banger of a car. So there he is with his car, absolutely delighted, because he's 20 like me, and now he's got a set of wheels, even though they don't go anywhere. So I see him the next week and I say, how is the car? And he said, yeah, I got it towed back to my house. I've been working on it, and I think the engine's ticking over and everything. I haven't got it on the road yet, but, I'm getting there. And I said, great news. And he said, the only thing is, he said, there's a little light that keeps coming on the dashboard, a warning light, and I don't know what it's for, what it's about. Now, some of you are going to be really shocked when I tell you this, but once there was a time when there was no internet. Can you imagine that? And I lived in that time. Anyway, so we didn't know how to solve this problem unless somebody knew the car. We didn't know what the light was. Anyway, I didn't see him again for another week. So I'm getting the following Saturday. How's the car? Great. I've got it on the road. Great. What about the warning light on the dashboard? He said, yeah. He said, I fixed it. And I said, great. What was it? And he said, I don't really know. I managed to get my screwdriver behind the dashboard and I prized it open a little bit and I could see that there was a wire that fed the light. And I got my snippers in and I snipped the wire. Now, do we all know why that is a bad idea? Give me a nod if you know why that's a bad idea. Yeah, that's a bad idea. Now, this is a metaphor for what our loved ones are doing with their emotions. When they drink, take drugs, scream, try and be suicidal, harm themselves, they're snipping the wire. They've no longer looked at what is this trying to tell me. They're more focused on how do I get rid of the light? How do I get rid of the alarm? Not what is the alarm telling me about? So you can tell this story. You can say, we're trying to get away from a feeling when we could look at what the feeling is trying to tell us and see if we can solve it. And then it will properly go away. And then you will feel powerful over it. Now, how do we work this though? How? That's what you want to know. How? And I have the answer. So stay with us. Stay with us. Am I all right for time? Am I good for time? Good. Okay, so all emotions have signature features to them, and these are the signature features of the emotion. The temperature of the emotion, the breathing, like anger is a hot emotion, right? Sadness is a cold emotion. Breathing, like angry breathing is, it's really jagged out breath. Sad breathing is incidentally on that point. I work with a lot of out of hours professionals, they work the out of hours phone lines. And my clients would often complain that if you ring the out of hours service, what you'll get told is take a deep breath and have a bath and talk to your care coordinator tomorrow, Now, taking a deep breath will work if your problem is anxiety, if your distress is anxiety. A deep breath, like when you're, I'm so upset. Oh, take a deep breath. It's better. It's better. But taking a deep breath will not work if your emotion is sadness, because sadness breathing is deep breathing. Take a deep breath. It's not going to help. It's not going to work. You have to know your emotion signatures. If you are going to work the emotion, you have to know the signature of the emotion, but you can find it out and it will work. Muscle tone, as we already did, with the anger example, you loosen it, your brain reads the muscles, it will bring down the hormonal tap. Facial expression. Now, I'm going to ask you to do something now. I don't want you to think about it. I don't want you to think about it. I just want you to do it, okay? If you do it, I promise you faithfully that you will learn something. Yes, I did say sadness is deep breathing. Yes, if you do this, I promise you that you will learn something from this. So what I want you to do is, and I'm going to rely on my lovely colleagues here whose faces I can see, because a lot of you whose faces I can't see. But I know if you do it because I'm psychic like that, and I will know if you're not doing it. So what I want you to do is, I want you to greet me as though I am your long lost friend and you had no idea that I was going to be at this workshop. What I'd like you guys that I can see, what I'd like you to do is unmute yourselves if you don't mind, just for this little bit of exercise. Put yourselves off mute. And what I want you to do is joyously greet me. Ready, go. Oh my God, I can't believe it's
No.
you, Jane. Oh,
goodness.
so happy to see you. Goodness, I'm so wonderful. Everyone, I want you to do it. Come on, greet me. Just do it. Oh my God, it's so fantastic to see.
I cannot believe you're here. So excited to see you.
Awesome.
Sure.
Oh,
Okay, now I want you to do something else. On this next one, keep everything the same words, same facial expressions, same everything. I want you to do it exactly the same. But this time, just don't raise your eyebrows. Just don't raise your eyebrows. We're going to do a teeny tiny opposite action. So same words, same face, same smile, same everything. Just don't raise your eyebrows. Go.
so
Goodness, it's so
excited
great.
to see you.
So great to
Great
meet
to
you.
see you.
Haven't
It's
seen you in such a long time.
Can I just hold them down?
Mhm.
What
I'm
did
gonna hold them.
you notice? What did you notice?
It's
How did
hard.
Keep them down.
Very unnatural.
who noticed that it felt slightly fake? Who noticed that you could not get as much joy? Put it in the chat if you couldn't get as much joy. You literally down-regulated joy just by a change in your anger. I'm not lying, am I? You literally felt less joy. This is because your brain is looking for the eyebrow flash in joy. And it doesn't see the eyebrow flash, the tap goes down. You do not get the same hormones suffusing your bloodstream. I'm not supposed to say this is like a miracle because Michaela Swells, who's my boss in the British Isles DBT training team, will say, Christine, will you stop saying it's like a miracle? Because it's like it's a cult or something like that. Don't say it, don't say it. So I never said, it's on record, I never said it's like a miracle, right? So also, I want you to try voice tone. Let's do a voice tone one. You don't have to unmute for this one, but all of you that I can't see, I will know if you do it. So just do it right. What I want you to do is I want you to use the voice tone of anger. And I want you to say, I'm really cross about that. Come on, I want you to say, I'm really cross about that. Okay, okay. Now I want you to say it in a kindly voice tone. Ooh, what happened to the level of your anger? What happened? Raise your hand if it went down. You cannot maintain the same level of anger in the presence of an opposite action. When you are acting opposite to the signature features of the emotion will come down. Now, if you go all the way to 0, though, you have invalidated your emotion. So you have to do the matching. Does this make sense? We have to do the matching. Now, I have some slides here for you about some of the we've got here posture, gesture, voice tone, actions in the environment. Actions in the environment are like when I'm angry, I slam the cupboard doors and stamp my feet and, and if I stop doing that, the emotion will begin to come down. But do not invalidate your emotion. Only get it down to the bit that helps you solve the problem. How do I solve the problem? Okay. So if there's a bill you can't pay, your emotion will come down when you work out how you're going to pay your bill. You have to look at what is this and what is my solution for this. Now, I once worked with a woman who, when I met her, and she's given me permission to share her story. When I met her, she was in hospital and the psychiatrist in the team asked me to see her, and he said, I think actually this person will probably die. I think we've done pretty much everything and we can't keep her alive. She used to flay herself, which is remove a layer of her skin. And she was like a mummy, in bandages, swathed in bandages. And, you know, it was very hard to see her. And I began to work with her. And the psychiatrist said, if she does die, then we will be able to say, we did everything we could. But he said, don't be hard on yourself, Christine. You know, this is a very difficult case. And we started working together, and there was a feature of her story, which was that, I mean, she was a very professional person. She, you know, has a lot of status in the society, and her husband was seeing someone else, and the shame of it was crippling for her, and she couldn't face what was ahead of her. You know, she was burdened by an intense and burning shame. And I remember this day that I was working with her, where I said to her, you know, you've done nothing wrong. Hold your head up high, get some firmness in your voice. Do not let your chin drop. Really straighten your shoulders, straighten your back, get yourself up. And in that moment, as she drew herself up, something changed for her. And I said, tell me the voice, tell me what's happening. My marriage is breaking up. Tell me firmly, my marriage is breaking up. Do not let your head drop in shame. And there was such a change in that moment, in the opposite action, that she took control of that emotion rather than letting that emotion control her. This is what Marsha Linehan says. And she felt it just as you felt in that bodily change, just as you felt it, she felt it. And I get a bit emotional about this because it was so poignant, but she had a daughter who was about 8 at the time, and she began to turn this corner and not be in hospital so much and get herself home, and her husband actually left and she didn't fall apart and it was okay. And her daughter said to her, Mummy, you died and you came back to life, which was so moving. And I can tell you that at the heart of this was having an emotion, realizing it was the function of shame is to tell us, am I going to be rejected by society? And this is what she thought was going to happen. And she acted opposite to that shame. And nobody did reject her. And that was the thing that turned this around, that she was able to turn it around. And this is the important thing I want all of you to know. When you have an emotion, it's trying to tell you something. If it's accurate, do the thing it's telling you to do. And if it's not accurate, do an opposite action. And I cannot tell you how important this is. Utilize your voice tone, utilize your muscle tone, utilize your facial expression. And this emotion will come down. You no longer need to fear it. It's there for a reason. It's your friend. You don't need to do any of these harmful things to get away from it. Now, on here, I have put on so for every signature feature that you act opposite to, the emotion will come down a little more. And the more features you work on, the more the emotion will come down. But when you get to the level that fits the facts, stop down regulating and do the thing the emotion is telling you. How much time have I got? Lynn, give me a signal. 5 minutes, right? So here are the steps. One, notice the emotion and name it. Now, if you don't know what emotion you're feeling, if your loved one doesn't know what emotion they're feeling, in the manual, the DBT manual, there's that long handout that Marsha Linehan has printed. It's got pages and pages, 14 pages. You just go through and you just run your finger down until you find the thing that's the closest fit. That's how you name the emotion. And affect labeling, under laboratory conditions, affect labeling reduces amygdala activity. Just saying the name of the emotion reduces amygdala activity. Now check, how much emotion do I want to keep? This is self-validation. I want to keep a bit of that emotion. Somebody came to me and said, my husband's been gambling the mortgage money. I didn't even know that he was gambling. I thought he was just paying it. I'm like, right, how much anger do we want to keep? She said, well, I you know, I'm absolutely livid. Yeah, I think you should be, because this is a big discussion you're going to have. Now, how much is taking it over the top? If it's at a point where it's going to harm you, you know, it's too much, let's get it down. But mostly we want to keep some, right? Nobody ever died of having an emotion. They died of trying to get away from an emotion. For the valid part of the emotion, problem solve using the action urge as a guide. And for excess emotion, act opposite to the emotion. For my girl who didn't feel angry, do you remember the girl with the jacket? She didn't feel that was stolen. She didn't feel angry. And her friend had stolen other things from her that came out in the discussion. She needs to increase the facial expression and etc. Put the emotion back in. Will she immediately feel more emotion? No. But over time, will it begin to pay off for her? Yes. So add it in, fake it till you make it. It takes longer, but down regulation is really quick. I can promise you that. Now, here are some tables that are about the emotions. So anger is to reduce some threat against you or to get through some obstacles. Sadness is to conserve the resources you have so you don't lose any more. These are available to you. You can have these sent out to you. So we will have a way of getting these to you. And also, I've written a book called Regulating Emotion the DBT Way. It's in there as well. And the little stories are in there if you're interested in that. Thank you, Lynn, holding up the book. Anxiety, what's the valid threat? Pure fear, something is threatening. Can you minimize the damage? Can you don't go forward in danger if there's pure fear? Shame, keep yourself what will get you kicked out of a group. Shame is to keep you in with the group. So is guilt. If it's vital to remain in the group and the group would kick you out, don't say anything, you know. If not, find a new group that you can say that thing to, or say it out loud like my client did. Guilt, face up to what you did and make a repair. Disgust, get away from something that could contaminate you. Envy and jealousy, they're there too. Okay, so I hope that it's given you some ideas about all your emotions are different. They're all trying to help you. If you know the emotions, then you have to kind of read up on it and know the emotions, and you know the signature features, and you act opposite, the emotion will come down. I want you to have confidence in that. And don't forget the voice tone as well. All of this, try it yourself. The next time you feel really angry, just say to yourself, okay, how much anger do I want to keep? Since I wrote the book, most people have got back to me and said, now I just ask myself this question, how much of this emotion do I want to keep? And instantly I feel more in control of it. I hope this will be useful for you. I really do. My heart is in it. My heart is in it. I love all of you for what you're doing. You're doing an immensely important job. Thank you so much. You are awesome. You are awesome.
Oh, thank you so much. That was fabulous. I learned so much. That was so great. Yeah,
Yeah.
I really love the temperature of emotion. That's the first time I've heard that. That makes so much sense. So yes, lots to do there. Couple of questions though. So can you talk a little bit about problem solving using your DBT skills when your loved one has BPD, but they also struggle with, because it requires critical thinking and they just don't seem to have it. And then obviously that just escalates when they're emotionally dysregulated. Can you talk a little bit about that?
I can. Thank you for that question. And this is a great question. So Marshall Linehan, who, devised DBT, had a moment of, well, many moments of, flashlight inspiration, which was exactly the problem that you say, Carol, that when you get an emotion, it robs you of your critical thinking anyway. Strong emotion robs you of your critical thinking. And it's very hard to continue to solve problems in the grip of a huge emotion. And so in the therapy itself, she builds in a time delay so that when I, as a therapist, am working with a client on learning problem solving, we always do it in a retrospective situation. So they come to see me with their diary card and we work on something that happened the previous week. Now, the delay is what gives us the ability to access the critical thinking. So now is not the time. If the worst time to learn to fly a plane is if you were in a biplane with the pilot and you looking at sightseeing and the pilot has a heart attack and you have to land the plane. That's a terrible time to learn to land a plane. You have to learn in a classroom with a curriculum and learn it that way. So what we're trying to do is look at problems that happened the previous week when the client might have had an urge to harm themselves, say, and then look at how would we have solved it back in that situation. And we mock up the solutions. So we say, what would I have said? And we talk through it and we practice it. But it's not now a hot emotion, it's a cold emotion because time has passed, right? So you can't regulate the emotion at the time you need to regulate it. You have to learn by practicing on things that went by recently. So you practice on something that went by recently, and then you say, how would I have handled that? Now, your brain has this virtual reality capacity. And it means that your brain can imagine being back in that situation. And when it does, it lays down neural networks as if you were back in that situation. So this is how you practice. So we practice with a time delay. So if it was a loved one, we might say, last week when you got really upset about that thing that happened at college, I wonder what we might have been able to do if we'd have caught it at the time. I wonder what you might have said to your friend. When, she really did take advantage and she could have told you that the assignment was due in and she didn't, she kind of let you down there. I wonder what we could have said to her at the time, and we do it in retrospect. So a feature of DBT training is learning in retrospect, but the neural pathways develop either way. So they still develop. So that's my top tip, to get something that's past and is no longer an issue, to always be very validating about it, but then just look and say, I wonder if there was anything we could have done. And then you can practice.
So how do we take it to the next level where, assuming our loved one is receptive and we can talk about the past, because sometimes they're ready to do that. Sometimes we have to wait.
Recent past, though, only last week.
Yeah.
Not like.
Yeah. But sometimes we still have to, they're still not ready for that conversation. But how do we to get them to that next level to help teaching others and just maybe others in our family that are also supporting the loved one, how to up or down emotions. Like, how do we share that besides role modeling? How do we actually kind of go about helping people understand those concepts?
This is a great question. I mean, there's a number of ways that you would do it. I mean, first of all, take the wins where you can get them. First of all, I would go back and I would say, oh, I went to a talk on emotion regulation. And guess what I heard? I heard this thing, and just tell as much of it as you can say. And this person said this. I mean, if you've got access to the recording, they might be able to have a look at the recording and then, play along with some of the exercises that I got you guys to have a go at. So that's one way that you can do it. You can do it by getting a book, by looking at maybe Regulating Emotion the DBT Way is a good book because it's got the stories in it and things like that. You can do it by saying, this is what I had to do to regulate my emotion today. I really had a strong emotion about something, and this is what I had to do. So using self-disclosure is a great way of doing it. You can also reinforce the behavior that you want, which is when you see somebody taking a deep breath. One thing that, especially if you're working with a younger person, we are programmed to copy each other. We are programmed to be in sync with each other. So if the person has their shoulders up like this and you drop your shoulders down, sometimes that just goes in itself. So Marsha always says, progress is slow and episodic, so that you don't get everything in one go. You get little bursts of insight and change, and then a plateau, and then another little burst. So being willing to stay with it is really important.
So important. I always tell people when I'm talking about it, we didn't get here overnight, so we don't get the fix overnight either, for sure. But talking about that youth, another question. Can you talk a little bit about using DBT skills and the effectiveness of using it in the whole family versus if just mom uses it, or if the child goes in, or the youth or our loved one goes and gets a DBT class, but we're not taking it? Like, can you just talk about that combination of, the effectiveness of those skills in the family dynamic?
In the family dynamic, that's right. Well, Marsha's model of DBT, she calls it a transactional model, which is that everything affects everyone. And so if you see that your loved one is angry, you might get angry yourself, or you might get sad about them being angry. But either way, it has an impact. Emotions are designed to impact on each other. And so that's why the more we can regulate our own emotion, the more we can help our family member. In fact, Francesca Paraplechikova, who is our young person specialist, she deals with much younger children in New York. She says it's impossible for a child to learn emotion regulation if the parent cannot regulate their own emotion. So it's really important for us, I mean, especially with little children, to be able to feel it ourselves. It also is important because even on those little exercises that you did with me this evening, for those of you who did do it, even on those, if you noticed a change that was a real feeling change, you're more likely to do it again. And so if you can practice together, everyone is more likely to have confidence in things. They're more likely to do it because they get a feeling change. Without a feeling change, nothing happens. But the biggest feeling change that you can bring as somebody who is a loved one is the validation. that it makes perfect sense. It makes perfect sense that you would feel that way. It makes perfect sense. The emotion will begin to come down. Carol, you told stories earlier, but you know, I remember with my granddaughter, we went out, my daughter and my granddaughter and I, we went out when the granddaughter was about 2. And we went for a walk in the woods, and then we had to come away because we had to go home, you know. But my 2-year-old granddaughter didn't want to come away from the woods. You know, she wanted to stay in the woods, and she did the full-blown tanty, you know, the massive tanty. And she threw herself on the ground, and she, you know, absolutely screaming the place down. Like people were walking by, like being embarrassed by all of this. We were a bit more. But anyway, my daughter, trained in all of this, obviously, she drops to her knees next to the child, and she says, "You didn't want to come away from the wood. You wanted to stay and play in the wood. You're really cross with mummy that you have to come away from the wood. You want to stay here. You don't want to go home." And my granddaughter, mid-tanty, I swear this is the truth, mid-tanty, she's like, "I didn't want to come away from the wood. I was cross with mummy." Yeah, you were cross with mummy because she wanted to stay. You wanted to stay and play in the wood. I did want to stay and play in the wood. It just dropped. I saw it before my very eyes. And this child did not have much cognitive capacity. I can tell you, she was only 2, but she had enough cognitive capacity to relate to the validation. So we're programmed to respond to validation from a very early age. Even my newest grandson, who's only 10 months old, if I stroke his arm and say, "It's okay," even at 10 months, he understands the phrase, "It's okay." You know, how? I don't know, but they understand something in your voice. So go for the validation first. First, validate why the feeling might be there, and then you are onto a winner.
Okay, I have a great one here. And I think this speaks to all of those who live. I know we're all supposed to stay on our wise mind, but we have our home bases. But those who are on the emotional side of the spectrum, because there's lots of us that live there. You know, some people, they express themselves through their tears, whether happy tears, whether sad tears, angry tears. I mean, the tears, the floodgates open, right? And that's just one example. Other people become more stoic, right? But it's like, how do you manage and how do you retrain yourself? Because I think it's retraining yourself to sort of, when that reaction doesn't fit the facts, but you know, the eyes gush, right?
Yeah,
And
that's right. It's just automatic. It's just automatic.
like they just do, right? And like, yeah, and you know, people will say, you know, I have a friend who's like that, and my kids always say, like, "What is wrong with her?" I said, "She cries for everything. It's just the way she is."
Yeah.
It's, you know, and it's just it's just the way she is. My friend is like that. She cries, happy, sad, whatever. But sometimes it doesn't always fit. So
Right, that's true.
how do you kind of start to kind of taper it back? Because obviously, you know, everything takes time.
Yes, it does. Yes, it does. Okay, so I've got 2 kind of responses to that. I'll probably forget them because I'm really forgetful these days. But anyway, 2 responses to that. So the first one is for the automatic response. If you know that the emotion doesn't wholly fit the facts, then you're right. Initially, there's not going to be an opportunity to stop it. The tears will be rolling down your face before you know you can intervene and make a difference to that. So what I would like you to do, if that's you, is I would like you to begin learning how to say, "I know I'm crying, and that's not because I'm tragically sad. It's because tears come easily to me." So I want you to verbalize the the distinction. So we're still looking for a distinction, but we're looking for you to verbalize it because your automatic responses are taking over. So I want you to hold your head up and say, I know I'm crying. It's not because I'm tragically sad. It's because tears come easily to me. You could even say, you know, I'm only sad about a 10 out of 100 or whatever. Just to you, for you to reassure yourself and other people that this is just a normal thing. I found as I've got older, for some reason, I've got more tearful about things. Tears come more easily to me. I get more moved by things. So I just have got to learn that myself. A colleague of mine used to cry in meetings when she was angry at work, and she was a professor, and she used to say in a meeting, I know I'm crying. It's because I'm angry, actually, not because I'm sad. So verbalize that. Now, if you want to inhibit crying, you have to do opposite actions to crying. Now, crying is an elongated breath. So what will help you if you want to stop it? And I always go with, what do you want? It's no good trying to impose this on anyone. It's always, what do you want? That you cannot regulate an emotion against someone's will. No matter how much I want it, they've got to want it. But if you want to inhibit crying, then we block crying in the breath. So we would hold our breath. We would firm up our muscles a little bit. And we would then, when we would talk in a non-sad voice. So in sadness, your voice goes to the outer voice range. So it goes higher. Oh, it's so terrible. And lower. Oh, I'm so sad. And that's to reach a wider range of ears to elicit help. That's why it goes into the outer ranges. So you want to get your voice tone back into mid-range. And you want to just say, I'm sad because in this moment, this particular thing has happened. So we're going to use our voice a lot to regulate sadness and our breathing. Floppy, sadness is a floppy muscle tone, and so we firm up the muscles. With my clients, they're often sadness phobic. And so will do anything rather than be sad, just anything, any emotion, any activity, just not to be sad. And I have to teach them how to be willing to be sad about things. But before I can teach them how to be willingly sad, cry willing tears, I have to teach them how to stop crying. Otherwise, they won't do it. It's like, if I start crying, I'm never going to stop. So we start with how to hold your breath, how to firm up your muscles, how to firm up your posture, how to speak in a firm voice and in the mid-range, and then get mastery over sadness. And then they're more willing to be able to cry.
It's just so fascinating how much our body, the whole body, participates in what we think is happening in our mind. That it's just fascinating how all the parts come together. And it's a lot. It's, because some of those things, like we say, that person who just cries, it just happens. And you have to really stop and think about all the things that are going on if you're going to change anything, right? And I think that's just fascinating to learn more about not just our emotions, but our whole body and how it has a part to play. That's great. Thank you so much.
Carol, I have an easy question for Dr. Christine Dunkley. If people want your book so much, they would like it to have it in French. Is it in French?
It's not in French, but if anybody wants to translate it, all you have to do is get in touch with the publisher and see what they say. I think if you translate the book into French, then you get I don't know how it works. You get something from the sale of the book, then I don't get it. They pay me an amount to pass the rights over to you. So if you want to translate it, then go right ahead.
Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you.
Great. Yeah, thank you. Well, Christine, on behalf of all of us, and you can see in the chat all the comments that people have been saying, all the thanks that are there in the Q&A as well. We are so grateful for you making the time and what you have shared tonight, just the teaching, the stories, bringing it to life, and the interaction. I mean, for all of us to get to, be aware of our eyebrows going up and down or not moving. And, I think that's great to be able to experience those things ourselves and not just read about it, but to bring it to life for us. So thank you so much for that. So grateful
Well,
to you.
I will just say, I go on LinkedIn. I've got, the reason I've got so many followers on LinkedIn, I put little articles and tips on there. So if anybody is interested in following me on LinkedIn, I put my top tips on there about various things to do with emotions and, all sorts of things to do with DBT. But if you are interested, that's where I put it. So new things go on there, and that's completely free. So
Fabulous. So I've already hit send on my Amazon. So the book is coming on Friday. Now I can join LinkedIn, and we can always go back and watch the recording.
yes.
So I think we can get our full circle. And then we'll look forward to you coming next year. If Lynn can work her magic and make that happen, that would be awesome.
And I want to personally thank you, Christine, for your time, your dedication. I know it's late for you. And then if you see like the comments in the chat, like I believe you made such a great impact for everyone that was listening to tonight and everyone else that will be watching the recording. So thank you so much. Really appreciate this.
Thank you. I love you guys so much. I'm so behind everything you're doing. Honestly, it was a pleasure, an absolute pleasure to be here and help in any way I could. I was delighted to volunteer my time. I honestly want to support you all. Lynn, you've stolen my heart, you know that.
Thank you so much. Thank you to all the participants for your active participation. And we'll see you at the next expert series. And I neglected to mention on September 14th, there is a Sashbear walk in Edmonton if you're out west, or on September 15th in Montreal. So lots of options. And until our next expert series, a big Sashbear hug to all of you.